first time ever, I'd like to let Macintosh speak for itself.
Hello, I'm Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag.
Well, computer intelligence has come a long way, although that joke could probably have been written today by ChatGPT. That, of course, was Steve Jobs introducing Apple's pioneering Macintosh computer almost 40 years ago. Jobs' friend and Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak is now among a chorus of tech leaders calling for a pause on artificial intelligence, citing, quote, profound risks to humanity. Just overnight, Samsung became the latest in a growing list of companies to ban the use of AI on their company devices. Wozniak, Elon Musk, other tech leaders recently wrote in an open letter that AI developers are, quote, locked in an out of control, I should say, race to develop and deploy ever more powerful digital minds that no one, not even their creators, can understand, predict, or reliably control. People listen when Wozniak talks about tech, about all of this. He designed the revolutionary Apple I and II computers that helped put Apple on the map. The Apple I they built in Jobs' parents' garage back in 1976. So we're really happy to have him with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. It's plenty early out here in California.
It's plenty early. We appreciate you getting up early. Look, you're worried. Elon Musk is worried. We just saw the man from Google, known as sort of the grandfather of AI, quit because of how worried he is. What do people need to know?
Well, you got a little bit wrong about me. I'm not like worried. I believe in fear and live in a life of fear. I just believe that when some powerful technology is introduced, we should look that almost all technology brings some good things to us and some bad things, and we should be responsible, and we should study these things and kind of prepare people for what's coming and take steps maybe to keep it from being too horrible and bad. For example, you know, look at how many bad people out there are just hitting us with spam and trying to get our passwords and take over our accounts and mess up our lives. And, you know, and now AI is another more powerful tool. And it's going to be used by those people, you know, for basically really evil purposes. And I hate to see technology being used that way. It shouldn't be. And probably some types of regulation are needed. Regulation is telling parties that are producing things, you will obey, you will not do certain bad things. It's like our Bill of Rights. The Congress will not pass certain types of laws. And, you know, you call that regulation. It's not like stopping you from doing your business. It's just saying, no, you've got to have some ethical concerns.
I'm also curious at how your thinking on AI has evolved since recent years. In 2018, you did this interview that I was watching yesterday. You said this about AI.
No machine sits down and says, what should I work on? Humans tell it what to work on. No machines can just do it well for us. So we're building technology that will make life easier for us. And where's the lack of jobs? At least where I come from, the United States, you know, people have jobs.
And now we see what you're saying, and also talking about regulation. Can there be global regulation, though, for something like this technology?
No, there never can be. It's one of the reasons that technology has so many bad sides. I often say those that brought us this digital world, you know, when I look back at some of the easier life days and less worries about all this stuff and things worked more, I say, you know, those that brought us this digital revolution should be executed, or worse yet, make them live in it. And that's so I, you know, yeah, so how can you not regulate bad people very well? Could AI be employed to spot all these little tricky little worded spams that are, you know, trying to get your passwords and all that? Could they spot that? It's never being used that way. It's being used by people who want to make a name for themselves or make money for themselves, and that never quite goes as well as it should.
I want to talk
It's
about...
kind of like love over money. I mean, I have feelings, I have emotions. And you know what? If I read a certain story, I might cry. Does AI cry? You know, and so it's being employed for the benefit of humans. When we started, even with Apple Computer, the personal computer was a tool that would let humans do more than they ever did before, and be more capable and in control of their own destiny more. And it's sort of like hard to judge it that way now. Do we ever get to that world where we're happier and happier than they were 10,000 years ago? Nothing tells me that's true.
I want to talk about what you would do, because the fact I mentioned the Godfather of AI, as he's known, Jeffrey Hinton, who left Google, right, in the last week. And here's what he said. The idea that this stuff, AI, could actually get smarter than people, a few people believed that. but most people thought it was way off. And I thought it was way off. I thought it was 30 to 50 years, even longer away. Obviously, I no longer think that. When we started this interview, you said, maybe we have to take changes. This letter talks about pausing things potentially. This is what Google CEO, right, where Hinton worked, Google CEO Sundar Pichai told me in 2019 about slowing down on AI if they have to. Here's what he said. You're basically saying we have to weigh our technological advancement and competitiveness with what it means for humanity.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, and I think it's important. That's what society expects us to do.
That was then, this is now. Should Google slow it down? And the competitors?
Well, Jeffrey Hinton is, he won the Turing Award, and that's the Nobel Prize, of computer science. So I would die for that. I got one close to it, but and these people that were involved in AI from the start, he's obviously one of them, and the woman who's CTO at OpenAI, and they put out, yes, there are concerns. Yes, we should have regulation, and they are very close to it. They're the producers of this technology. So you normal people out there, we should be told, here is something that was generated by AI. So we can say, I prefer to know things that are always right and not some that are a little bit untrustable and flaky. I like the trust.
Well, what do you think about the political aspect of this, though? Because we saw President Biden announce that he's running for re-election. Republicans responded with this AI-generated ad, basically saying it'd be this dystopian future if he's re-elected. It was criticized. Are you worried about the harmful effects AI could have on our politics?
Yeah. Well, AI has beneficial effects in giving us like a lot of good guidance, like being a good reporter, and we humans should be the editor. There should always be a human editor. And when that's not the case, we're going to have a lot of problems. As far as, AI being used to, I don't know, deep fakes, making somebody sound like a person in their voice and taking advantage of, a mother. We've seen that recently, and there's going to be a lot more of that than there ever was before. Tricking you into things. Tricking's going to be a lot easier for those who want to trick you. And, we don't really we're not really making any changes in that regard. We're just assuming that the laws we have will take care of it. So I'm a little, worried that about people being abused more than anything else. Fortunately, I'm not political, but yes, it could be used, AI could be used to kind of sway and make it seem like political truths are there. But people are very different, and AI tends to come out with a broadcast that sort of says, we're all the same. I am truth. I am, here is a very deep understanding of something. Well, you don't even know what I'm going to feel like eating tonight, And AI is just not like that. It just misses a lot of the emotional drive. A lot of the decisions we make have an emotional content, and AI will kind of act like, oh, here's a decision to make, and it's just kind of like monotone, sort of boring.
We have so many questions, Steve. We hope I should say. We hope you'll come back.
But can I ask one more before you go, actually? Because one thing we always talk about here is Elon Musk. Do you talk to Elon Musk ever?
I've never actually met him and spoke with him. I admire some things that he's done for the world, changing us towards electric cars, but, his real motivations inside, is he really a purist of trying to clean the air and all that, gets shadowed by a lot of other things. And he basically got a lot of money from myself. For a car, I believe things he said, that a car would drive itself across the country by the end of 2016. Oh, I had to upgrade to that model, $50,000. And then it wouldn't do anything. I could tell it wouldn't ever make it across the country. And he said, here we have a new one with 8 cameras. It'll make it across the country by the end of 2017. I actually believed those things, and it's not even close to reality. And boy, if you want a study of AI gone wrong and taking a lot of claims but trying to kill you every chance it can, get a Tesla.
Wow.
Wow. Any thoughts on how he's running Twitter?
Well, it's kind of bumbling. I can't say good or bad. I'm not really there. And Twitter, probably needs a lot of change and revamping in most people's eyes. So we'll see. I mean, Twitter's a social network, and I pretty much avoid the social networks. Just part of, I don't know, you can get so distorted and get in groups, and people are free to criticize everybody, and they're sort of anonymous, and they aren't judged. People can do illegal things very easily on YouTube or on Twitter, very illegal things. You point at it, and the companies won't do anything to even shut it down, other than you can report it, like you can report anything, and they'll take that one instance down and another pops up like whack-a-mole. No, this whole, the way the social web works brought a lot of negatives. You can see that movie, The Social Dilemma, and it's full of a lot of negatives of how they treat the users and kind of meld them just to get more business.
It's a really
love versus money.
Really important documentary you point to.
Yeah, and we should note Tesla would probably dispute what you said about the cars. I know that you have expressed frustration before with what Elon had said the cars would be able to do, what their capability actually was. Fascinating conversation, Steve. We loved having you on, and we hope you come back, even though it is really early for you.
Yeah, I'm any time zone for me.
Okay, thank you.
It's technology that could be superior to the human brain, and one of its pioneers now says part of him regrets his role in creating it. 75-year-old computer scientist Geoffrey Hinton says he quit his job at Google so he can independently share his concerns about AI technology, which include fears over disinformation and stealing human jobs, but also go far beyond that.
What do we do to mitigate the long-term risks of things more intelligent than us taking control? Things like GPT-4 eclipses a person in the amount of general knowledge it has, and eclipses them by a long way. In terms of reasoning, it's not as good, but it does already do simple reasoning. And given the rate of progress, we expect things to get better quite fast. So we need to worry about that.
It's just the latest warning that tech companies might be creating a monster they can't control. In March, after OpenAI released the latest model of its chatbot, GPT-4, more than 1,000 people from the tech industry, including billionaire Elon Musk and Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, signed a letter calling for a moratorium on AI development. Hinton also called for developers to hit pause, and Google's chief scientist responded to his interviews in a statement.
We remain committed to a responsible approach to AI. We are continually learning to understand emerging risks while also innovating boldly.
Hinton himself said Google has so far acted as a proper steward for the technology, but is coming under increasing pressure from competition. He warns that tech giants are trapped in a race that will require global regulation to stop.
2023 is becoming the year of ChatGPT. Its popularity has helped thrust artificial intelligence into the public eye like never before. We're now talking about AI, the pros and cons, like never before, but do we even see what we think we are looking at? The advances in AI are now exponential, so fast that some AI experts now predict artificial intelligence will become more intelligent than humans by the end of this decade. A growing chorus of tech thinkers are warning we are not prepared. And that includes Geoffrey Hinton, a leading machine learning pioneer who's known as the Godfather of AI. He says it's time to put the brakes on AI while we still can.
We're scientists, right? We're exploring what happens when you train large neural nets on computers. And that's just reality that we ended up here. It's one of those things where there's no way that people weren't going to explore it. The issue is now that we've discovered it works better than we expected a few years ago, what do we do to mitigate the long-term risks of things more intelligent than us taking control?
Yeah, big question there. I want to bring in now Lindsey Gorman. She's a senior fellow for emerging technologies at the Alliance for Securing Democracy in Washington, D.C. Lindsey, it's good to see you again. Geoffrey Hinton, he wants us to slow down. He has joined a growing chorus of AI experts who are calling for a moratorium on AI development and deployment. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I think that he speaks to a very real concern that AI systems are progressing rapidly, more quickly than anyone really expected a couple of years ago. The idea that we could train large language models such as ChatGPT and have it display what we think of as intelligent tasks and capability is not something we really saw. And so I think that's caused a little bit of a panic in the community to say, how are we developing this technology? Where's it going? Can it get ahead of humans? I don't think we're there yet. Certainly, there are these sort of capabilities that look like intelligence and maybe moving in that direction, of course. But I don't think we're necessarily at the point where AI is taking over humans. But there are some real concerns with how these systems are going to be used and how they are already being used when it comes to the information environment, when it comes from job displacement, and when it comes to extending wage inequality.
ChatGPT, Italy, as soon as ChatGPT really exploded, Italy put a ban on the chatbot, which was then later lifted. Is that the right approach when we're talking about maybe trying to get a better hand on managing AI?
Well, I think you have to hand it to Italy in that it very aggressively deployed its existing legal architectures to this new technology. And specifically, it applied the General Data Protection Framework, GDPR, the EU's sort of landmark data privacy and data protection legislation, to say that ChatGPT hadn't actually justified a need and really demonstrated the need to scrape all the data that was used to train the model on the internet, including in Italy. And that was really the reason for and the legal basis for that block, to provide that justification for why are we scraping this data to develop this system without justifying the need. But I think it does really speak to this question of how much are we able to apply the existing legal framework, such as the GDPR, as in the case of Italy, and how much do we really need to develop new regulatory frameworks to address these new applications and new uses and new risks with these large language models. And I think the answer is a little bit of both.
And of course, when we talk about regulation, we're not talking about something that's going to happen overnight. In the meantime, we're going to have a big election in the United States. I'm thinking about the 2024 presidential election. I'm wondering what will AI mean for that? Now, last week, you retweeted a post with a video that is 100% generated by AI. It's a video by the Republican National Committee against President Biden. It's a 30-second clip where we see it right here that shows China attacking Taiwan, the U.S. banking system collapsing, and it shows the U.S. border with Mexico being overrun by migrants. Now, the video, it looks real, and you say that this is a big problem. Why?
Well, researchers, our organization, and many others for years have been warning and raising the alarm about the specter of deep fakes and the possibility that political actors or even foreign actors looking to interfere in democratic elections could use these completely fake images, video, or even text, now we're seeing, to manipulate voters into certain preferences and into certain candidates and in certain worldviews. And this is about the general information environment, whether that's Chinese propaganda or Russian disinformation, but it also comes to a flashpoint when we're talking about elections. And I think 2024 may be the first election where deep fakes and where AI generated images and video play a much more significant role than they have in the past. There's always been this kind of alarmist worry that something is going to flip the mind of a voter maybe on the eve of the election and we don't have time to prove that it's actually faked. It's just become so much easier to create these videos. And so they really need to be labeled as such so that we can tell what's real and what's not.
And U.S. intelligence tells us that Russia used social media to meddle in the 2016 and the 2020 elections. It's 2023. There's still no regulation of social media. Can Washington deal with artificial intelligence?
Well, that is really the million-dollar question. I think there's no reason to suspect that our foreign adversaries are going to sit this election out, as they haven't for the previous elections, and whether they'll be able to manipulate AI or maybe they don't even need to, I think is the question. Now, there have been some efforts to, on behalf of the social media platforms, to prohibit the use of manipulated content and manipulated videos right on the eve, maybe the 2 weeks leading up to an election. I think we're very likely to see similar policies put in place in 2024 if we don't get broader regulation. And I think those policies really should include the requirement to label manipulated and deep faked and AI generated images and video, because now anyone can make these images with Midjourney, with DALL-E, and it's not something that only computer science labs are able to generate.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe they should insist on putting watermarks on these videos. I want to ask you about what we're seeing here in the European Union. We know it's led the way with legislation to protect data privacy on the internet. Now the EU is drawing up legislation that would make AI companies disclose any copyrighted material that's used to train their chatbots, for example. Is this, in your opinion, would this be a way to control AI?
I don't know if it's a way to control AI as so much as a way to preserve intellectual property, because there's a real concern of if an AI system is developed using sort of proprietary information, whether that's on the corporate side or in the artistic side, who really owns the results of that? If an AI generates new poetry and new art, but it's actually working by spoofing and copying and kind of predicting what a famous poet or a famous artist would be writing or creating or drawing, then really it gets to the question of ownership. Who has created this? And so I think this effort by the EU is a really strong attempt to get at this question of copyright infringement, and as I said earlier, apply some of kind of the existing frameworks that we have around copyright, around data, to this new AI era. So I don't know if I see it as a way to control AI. I think there will be broader regulation when we think about, and the EU is doing this as well, on kind of a risk-based framework for AI harms. That's going to take a little bit more time, but it absolutely makes sense to apply kind of the existing tools that we have to make sure that there isn't intellectual property and artistic and creative infringement and on ownership as these systems develop and they become more popular.
Lindsey Gorman, as always, Lindsey, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.